evening, Grafton. Welcome to the Grafton Public Schools School Committee meeting for January 9th. I'll call the meeting to order at 7 o'clock. Would like to wish everybody in the community a Happy New Year. Hope everybody had a safe and happy holiday season. I'm going to ask for public comment, and I'm going to think that there is none. And then I'm going to invite up Joanne Stocklin, who is the principal of Millbury Street School, and Stephen Wilshire, who's the principal of North Street School, up to present about their amazing schools. So welcome, and thank you for coming out here on this wet night. It's great to see you both.
Thank you for having us. Happy New Year to you as well. And I wanted to share Roseanne Kraposka wishes she could be here, but she came down with an illness and is unfortunately unable to come in today.
We send her our best wishes.
Yes,
She recovers.
thank you. And Joanne and I are happy to always come and share the work that we're doing at Millbury and North Street Schools. We'll dive right in and take any questions you have along the way. We started, Joanne and I, thinking about our presentation for tonight, looking at the district initiatives that Jay and DLT have set, and two of them being connections and well-being. It's certainly an area we've spent a lot of time on in recent years, but really trying to highlight all of the things that we do to build connections amongst all the stakeholders, our staff, our community, families, and of course the students, and make sure everyone feels supported and that their mental health is in a good place. And we believe that both of those things are in connection with each other. So that's kind of our theme tonight at a glance. We're going to look at it from, again, a well-being and connection standpoint, and those are the actual statements that we have in our district plan. Well-being, fostering a safe and caring environment that allows all students and staff to thrive. You've probably heard me say that is so critical. If kids don't feel safe and cared for, they're not really ready for optimal learning. It's that game show effect. When you're nervous, you're anxious, you tend to not focus as much. You're thinking about a lot, and you're not really kind of prepared to dive into that new learning and take chances. And then, of course, the connections piece being promoting strong and positive interpersonal connections between all of us in the Grafton Public Schools. So as Joanne and I were talking about it, and by the way, I should say, Joanne and I, we talked, rather than going back and forth a little bit, I'm going to be the spokesperson, and Joanne's going to kind of be the color commenter here.
Shocking, I'm not going to say much.
He'll add the flair.
Where needed.
So as we reflected on all that we do, there were really kind of two pieces we wanted to share with you. One was those interpersonal connections, and then the other one as it relates to our programming, our curriculum, and how all those connections are built as well. So first and foremost, when you think about educators in the school, students, families, community, it's really where they intersect that is the culture of our schools. I know Joanne feels the same way about Millbury Street, and we were talking before we started. We've both been in our building now, for me, 9 years. I think Joanne had said 13 years. And we've always felt that culture to be very strong, a very supportive team. And that just doesn't happen. That's really built with the people in the building. And it's all the things we do in the overlapping area there that builds that culture of connections. So we're going to touch on that in a little bit. But first, we're going to dive into some of the programming and system connections that we've been working on this year that really tie in some initiatives that we have in the curriculum side of things, also things that new science and research is showing us, and dive right into that. So curriculum connections, really kind of three areas we wanted to highlight. One was piloting our new ELA program. So we have Wit and Wisdom, in my view, that's taking place right now for our pilot. Going to dive into that a little bit. And also Second Steps at our buildings is new, and our teachers have been using that in conjunction with responsive classroom, PBIS strategies as well. The tech department has been working with us to really bring about a new focused area for us was building that STEAM innovation zone, and happy to share some updates on that tonight when we get to that slide. But really thinking about redesigning the space and redesigning what our students are doing during that time that they're in that space. And that includes reviewing standards and resources. And then finally, we've revamped with the curriculum department the report card to better align to the standards to also better communicate with families where their children are and the progress they're making, and clarify that level of performance, and also tie into the CASEL standards when it comes to SEL. Anything else, Joanne, you want to add to that?
You're
You
doing a
good?
great
All
job,
right.
Steve.
So you've all seen this before. I know Lisa Rice has been here and has shown you the readers wrote before, but I just thought it's important to highlight that the reason why we're piloting these programs ties to the science of reading. We really want to make sure that we're focusing on that language comprehension and the word recognition. And it's been great working with Jen Mannion to see those things in action. And a number of teachers across our buildings are piloting, which is very much appreciated. It's a lot of extra work for them, but it really gives us insight into each program, the values of each, and what works, so that we can make an informed decision, for multiple years ahead. That's kind of the key piece of why we're piloting there. And I feel like what I've seen in the classrooms is a lot of rigor and a lot of students sharing and having conversations with each other in a deeper way, which I think is fantastic. And I've also noticed, too, it's having a good impact on the kids' writing from my observations
Yeah,
as well.
I would agree with that, yeah.
Innovation Zone progress. So this is at Millbury Street, and we've worked really closely with Neil to bring this project about, kind of rethinking that space. And as you can see in these pictures here, really cool uplifting of the computer lab spaces from a very kind of bland area to now lots of colors, some connections to robotics and engineering. And our goal is to be looking towards really making this a STEAM lab and an innovative space for kids to work and learn. We've spent time with Chris and Janet, our two technology teachers, to review standards for computer science and also engineering to look at how we can incorporate and increase some more of those components into what they do. Our kids became very good at Google Classroom and typing and all of that over COVID, as we know. So really kind of what's that next step we want our kids to take. And setting that environment for them in that zone was that first step. Rebranding it from computer class to innovation zone kind of gets the kids thinking about this is going to be a place where they can tinker around, try new things, and try out experiments, and then make changes as we go along. Very preliminarily, but Jen and I have also talked with Project Lead the Way, which is a fantastic science engineering program, looking to write hopefully a grant that will get us some of those resources and supplies. It's a fantastic program that then they could utilize during that block of time as well. More to come on that, but this is just an update on where we're heading. Report card codes. So you may remember that the past report card had a 1, 2, or 3 standard, and a lot of feedback we got from families and teachers was, I understand what a 3 is, I understand what a 1 is, but a 2 is a very big gray area. That there's a 2 could mean the child is getting a lot of support or very minimal support. Well, which one is it? And created a lot of confusion at times. So a lot of districts have gone to language that's similar to what you would see on the STAR assessment that we do, or an MCAS, or really any other assessment that's out there right now, towards meeting, progressing towards standards. Independently, that's what that P is really there. It highlights, it really breaks down that 2. So a P is, they're on track to where they need to be. They're just not quite at the end of year standard just yet. And then beginning, of course, means that they're still on track. They just need some support to get there at this point. And then, of course, not yet demonstrating that progress, which is, what interventions now are we putting in place, making sure they're getting what they need. The feedback, I touched base with some parents. They felt like this was more informative for them, and hopefully, for those of you who've got a chance to see this report card, you felt that way as well. And we'll continue to get feedback from teachers on how that first trimester went and make any further tweaks that we need to.
Yeah, I do want to add something here. Just kudos to Steve and the people on the report card committee, because they did a phenomenal job communicating out to parents the change. Developed a whole website of information that the parents could use as a resource to go look at when they had the report card. And I have to say, I have a population just under 600, and I didn't have any parent reach out to me in confusion or surprise that the report card was changing. So I do think that that was really a powerful, positive impact on that transition, made it really smooth.
Yeah, similar for us too. 575 kids. I think we had one question, and it wasn't really so much a question about the report card so much as just where their student is in the interventions they were getting. So we'd love to have feedback on that. And then another huge change we made, in addition to performance codes and looking at the standards themselves, of course, which we did that back in the spring with the teachers. We continued into the fall. But we largely revamped our social emotional core competency section of the report card. And what we really decided to do, which I think is a great connection, is the CASEL standards, which are really the gold standard when it comes to SEL. That wheel you see over there has 5 main components to it. And we pulled some of the most meaningful ones from each of those sections and then put them in parent-friendly terms, student-friendly terms for them to see, to make sure that we're really tying back towards those. And the nicer thing too, whether it's STARS at North Street or CARES at Millbury Street, there's a lot of crossover between our core values at the school and those CASEL standards. That was another change that the teachers really appreciated, and I think hopefully gives parents more insight to how their kids are performing.
And I do like the fact that they now have growth mindset in there. It's something that we've been working on with the children for a few years. To see it on the report card is a nice change.
And then finally, another key change in our curriculum, as we mentioned, is Second Step. So we already have responsive classroom in our buildings, morning meeting, and restorative justice practices, all of those pieces. Second Steps gives us another layer of lessons for targeting specific topics that come up throughout the year, whether it be bullying or ways to compromise, social emotional skills in developing those in kids. And then, of course, we incorporate in our assemblies a lot of PBIS strategies as well. I know we have Stargazers. You guys have your CARE certificates, and making sure kids are recognized for modeling, role model behavior without thinking anyone was watching, which is important, and finding different ways to celebrate that throughout the day.
Yeah, and the nice thing about Second Step is that the themes run concurrently through the grade level. So if you have children in multiple families, they might actually be talking about the same values in Second Step, and it makes for interesting conversations at home. So it's a nice connection.
Yep. In North and South Grafton had just adopted this the year before, so the kids coming into the building have had some of that common language as well. So it really is now a K-6 component that we have in place. And then tying that all together, as we think about the professional development throughout the year for the staff, we really had a goal last year and this year, making sure the PD time was tied to our initiatives, and that it gave teachers time to plan and also get vital, important information they needed. So back in September, with the new report card, our half day was focused on finalizing that report card, giving it a chance to see that and play with it. Artificial intelligence, which is a very big topic right now. Neil and I went to Millbury Street, put it on for both schools, and it was largely, the teachers said, one of the best PDs that they've had. It gave tools for them, but also gave them a background on what AI is and how it's impacting students' learning and the work that they do. This January and March, we'll be doing trauma training in ALICE simulations. And then, our hope is in May, as we finalize the ELA selection that we're piloting, begin rolling that out for the fall so that the teachers have time to see the teacher manuals, do some planning, be prepared when we come around to August to dive right in. And the nice thing about this is all, we work with Julie and Melissa too for all of these topics. So this is not just our 2 buildings, but really K-6, pre-K-6. All right, so jumping into the connections that we have between all stakeholders, really so many options there. Again, everything that happens during those crossovers is really important. It really creates the cultures at our school, and as I shared, we couldn't be happier with the cultures that we have, both at Millbury Street and North Street. As Joanne and I were creating these, we didn't have big enough boxes to list all of the things that we do, but the student connections that we have throughout the year continue to grow, and it feels like, you know, COVID was a long time ago, but we're still in some ways bringing back some things. And last year it seemed that way, but this year it really seems that way. Like, I feel like all the time there's something going on, just how it used to be, which is fantastic. Just a few examples, our student counselors are back fully up and running. We have amazing band and chorus instructors. I know you guys know that, but they've worked with the high school to have the elementary band come to the football game, which is a great community connections. The kids were very excited to be there and get a chance to play in front of the crowd. Our running club at North Street,
We have one too.
the Blues, and
Yeah,
Rivers,
Run Club, yeah.
And the running club, they are participating in the Grafton 5K, Gazebo 5K, the Harvest 5K that the community barn puts on, you know, blues and jazz band. They were at Apple Tree Arts playing over a weekend this fall. So there's really a number of great opportunities for the students to be not only in school leading, but out in the community and showing off all their talents and their skills. Which kind of leads to the family connections as well, making sure that our families are involved in all of those, and in most cases they are in all of those things I just mentioned. But then another layer, of course, is, you know, what we do to set up for the beginning of the year with our ice cream socials. We'll be having our math literacy night again this year at the high school. We just were finalizing a date a few days ago. All the support we get from the PTG, who I know you all know how amazing that support is every single year. We couldn't do what we possibly do without our PTO and PTGs. Anything else you want to add to that?
No?
And Playful Engineers, that was a really great enrichment first time we did that this year. We had a gentleman come in, both schools. He spent the whole week there. It was supported and budgeted by the PTGs, and he came in and did a great STEAM activity with the kids, creating links and with popsicle sticks and talking to the kids about how they're all connected. And he was there all week, every day,
Yeah, it was great.
Monday to Friday. Then, of course, community connections, finding ways to work with our Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts on a regular basis. The Worcester Railers and our chorus and band will be going to the Grafton night at the Worcester Railers. The high school team plays, and then they'll be singing and playing, and then the Railers play that evening. We partner with Grafton Recreation and MCU Banking. Grafton Libraries in our school a lot, helping us get kids connected to the new library, making sure they have those resources, Community Reading Day. So just a number of great partnerships. That middle picture is the running from last year, the Gazebo 5K. So really trying to make sure our kids realize they're part of not just a school community, but a greater Grafton community, in that they can find ways to give back to that. And of course, all of that's not possible without the support of all the parents too. I need to make sure I mention that too. And our staff connections. You know, whether it's finding ways to recognize the staff. There's Mr. Adams getting his 10-year apple this year. We were talking about the apples earlier, and
that, I just want to, the
Yeah.
picture down at the bottom underneath the thing, those are 5 of our amazing paraprofessionals in our intensive needs program, but they're holding the Hulk because we have an It's Incredible award, and staff nominate each other, and they get the Hulk. So that fine group of people received the Hulk from a colleague just recently. I love that picture.
Yeah. And so for, you know, staff mental health is really critical as well. So we have a group of us that have been meeting regularly to organize different ways to recognize one another, different ways to just get together and enjoy being on a team. And I think that's very critical that that time is spent doing that. We've also increased our PLC time, professional learning time, so that our teachers during recess once a week. They're able to meet with Jenny DeRoss or Kristen Perrone. The kids are covered at recess, and they're able to talk about curriculum and other initiatives that we're working on. So it's not a huge amount of time, but I think teachers really appreciate any amount of time that we can give them to do that work. And we kind of were thinking about how we wrap up this survey to kind of bring that idea of connections and well-being really together. And we do a survey at our schools. We've been doing it for years. We call it the Connectedness Survey. Joanne's Millbury Street, they call it the Link Survey. But it really asks two questions. The first question is if you had a small problem, what adults in the building would you go to for support? And the kids list different adults. But I think that's an important question. But the next question is, what is it that those adults do that make you feel comfortable going to them? And without fail, every single time we give this survey, we look at over 500 at my school, over 600 at Joanne's school. Those are always the key ones that come out. That the person listens carefully, that they provide solutions, they're caring, kind, and friendly, they're understanding. And then I think the last one is so important. They follow up to ensure the problem is solved. And the kids know, they recognize those interactions with staff and each other, and that connection is strong when they feel those things.
Right. And it just is so fresh for me because I had a staff meeting after school yesterday, and it was actually, I put all the data together for the teams, and they all got a chance to look at the children's responses, fresh. And it was so good for them and so affirming for them to be able to read what the children say about them. And one thing that was really powerful for me as, the principal was when I came to Grafton, I had started a Big and Little Buddies program. I don't know if you are familiar with that, but I just pair every child up with an adult in the building, purposely not their teacher, someone that gives them direct instruction. But, and then the purpose is for that person to make sure that they touch base with the child and introduce them to people around them, and the child's expected to do the same. But it was pretty amazing, and it was really nice for me to see all the children that said they would go to their big buddy if they needed help, which made me feel like that circle that the kids of trust was so much wider, that they wouldn't do just their teacher, or their principal, but they actually just an adult in the building that they know as a big buddy. And I think that was really nice to see about the culture at Millbury Street.
The day I put this slide together, another story that kind of made me think about all of these things. We had a new student enroll, and I gave the mother and second grader, gave her a tour of the school, and she was very quiet, of course. And I said, "Do you have any questions for me at the end?" And she said, just one. And of course I was like, I don't know what it's going to be. What's for lunch tomorrow? And she said, "Do the teachers in this building yell at the kids?" And it broke my heart.
I had to hear her say that.
To hear her say that, and I paused, and I thought to myself, I've really never heard anybody yell in this building, which just speaks to the culture and the way that we treat the kids and approach the kids. And I said to her, "Yeah, you won't ever see that." And you could, her face just lit up.
Sweet.
So she's doing great so far.
And also, just to interject too, thank you for giving us school adjustment counselors, because about 40% of the children or more mentioned my school adjustment counselor was somebody that they would go talk to.
Yep.
So she is around the building. In fact, I had grade levels give me 5 noteworthy trends that they saw. That was the purpose of them looking at the data. And one of them said they all know who Mrs. K is. And then another one said, "Mrs. K is so active in our classrooms, it's good to see." So I just want that was powerful impact of that person being added to our staff. So
Immensely. Yeah, absolutely. So that was the end of our presentation. Happy to.
You did a great job, Steve.
Talk fast,
You
but-
both did a great
Yeah.
job. It's always wonderful to see you and hear the wonderful things that are going on in your schools, which really, the combined, they're the majority of our students. So it's really great to hear
And I
from
think
you.
we've probably been doing this for like the last 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
And
I love
we
the-
really like it because
Me too.
it's also affirming for Steve and I to be together and be able to talk about the things that we do.
Yeah. Any questions from the committee? Leora, you looked. You looked like ready. And
I am ready, so thank you both. That was great and really good to hear how things are going and continue to go well. I did have a question about the new performance codes and how those are handled, for example, for kids on IEPs. So I know that sometimes with the 1, 2, 3s, there might be an asterisk to indicate that it's based on modified work, et cetera. But it seems like this might remove that need. So can you talk a little bit about how that works?
Yeah, so we did include an asterisk for a couple different reasons. One indicates that the standard hasn't been assessed. So if a child has not been assessed at that standard, and all the standards are grade level standards, of course, end of year standards, it's possible that they may not have had that assessment at that point just yet. And then the units of study are taught at different times, could be another reason why you would see that asterisk. But more often than not, you're going to see students not yet demonstrating progress towards that standard or end-of-year standard. Working with Nicole McDonald, and her feedback from Department of Education was that they didn't want to see on report cards specific performance codes that identified special education students.
Yeah, I don't know if my question was clear then. So, for example, I have a student on an IEP, and they used to get a 2 or a 3 with an asterisk next to it, indicating that, yeah, they got a 2 or a 3, but they have modified work, or, it was unclear what that meant. So we'd get this report card, and I'd be like, why am I even looking at it?
Yeah.
Because it's just got a bunch of asterisks. I'm just
Right.
going to read the teacher comments, which is more
Yeah.
impactful, right?
Right.
So it seems to me that in this case, you can, a student might be meeting some standards or progressing towards STEM
Exactly.
standards and not others. So this seems like it might work better
Yes.
It's more
for students like
applicable
that.
It's more
for
applicable,
Yeah.
different
yes.
types of
Yeah,
students.
okay.
Yeah. And I think the goal was to clarify that confusion of,
Yeah.
well, where in relation is my child to that standard? Like, not with the asterisk or without it. Can they
Right.
do it independently, or do they need support? Are not demonstrating yet, or maybe they mastered it already. So it does, I think,
It seems more inclusive, like a more inclusive
Yes.
way to,
That's nice.
to
That's good
measure
to hear.
everybody's work.
that's the
Thank
whole idea.
you.
So,
Yeah.
thank you for that.
Liz?
Yeah, I was wondering about the sixth graders. Are they, now it's been a while, are they getting grades, letter grades now, or are they using the
Yes.
performance codes? What-
So still using percentage grades
Okay.
in sixth grade. It's something we've talked about of working with our sixth grade team to work towards a standards-based report card. And I think it's a trend that's happening not only at the sixth grade level, but across conversations I've had and other, with other colleagues, is that even at middle and high school, there's conversations about standards-based report cards now. Or at least, using them as a component of reporting to families, because, largely the percentage is, did they complete the work? Are they, meeting the requirements of what the teacher has set? But do they actually know how to do the work is what is important. Can they do, meet those standards? So that's something that I think we've had conversations about, but they are still using percentage grades right now.
Can I ask one more quick one? Well, I just wondered, and maybe I missed this, but what was your inspiration for the innovation zone? I think that's fantastic.
Yeah. So I want me to jump in? Yeah, no, yeah, it's kind of, Neil and,
It's Neil's inspiration, I think.
Neil and I have had this vision. So in all transparency, I was on the building committee in Millbury to build a new elementary school. And as part of one of the goals we set was to design a STEAM lab that was, we obviously had free reign because it was a brand-new building. But to see not only there, but also when I was at a national conference this year and talking with different vendors, to see a lot of the different resources and things that we can bring into the computer lab. Neil and I have talked about it, and, coming back, Neil and I were really gung-ho about going forward with it, because I think taking that space and using that time to give kids more opportunities to tinker with things and explore is just so important right now in our world. And in the process, they're working with each other in teams, which those interpersonal skills are very critical. For example, when we had Playful Engineers come out that week, so many kids were saying to me, Mr. Wilshire, we need to do this more.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's coming.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I was wondering if there were any clubs that were using the room as well, or maybe some
Yeah.
ideas for next year or?
Well, the
something like
rooms
that?
they look beautiful, but now we really need to do the stuff.
Yeah,
right? You
okay.
know, it looks good, but now it's time
Yeah.
to build the programming.
Yeah, and I know Janet and Chris have done coding clubs and Lego engineering clubs, things like that. But yes, kind of moving in that direction and you know, using that space for other activities is, you know, I think the ideas are endless. They have these mini drones that you can program now that will just fly across the room, but it's a simulation. So it's talking about how if you had to bring medicine to a remote location, like how do you plan that? And then how do you get it to take off and land over where it's gonna go and gotta go over this mountain? So it's real life applications. That's very engaging for kids too, and they have to work together in a meaningful way.
Yep.
Cool. Amy, I saw your hand.
Yeah, I had a question about the core competencies for the SEL report card. Are those using the same codes or different codes, or is there a rubric? I guess I'm wondering how that's assessed.
Yeah, so we use the same code, and we did have a lot of conversations of whether we should we have two different performance codes for that, but the first go, we settled on making sure that it was less confusing for families. So we kept it the same as the performance codes, and to make sure that we were in line with that.
So I guess I guess I'm trying to wrap my head around what is the end of year standard for each grade level in those areas? Is that published, or is that something that you've had to make up?
Yeah. Yeah, I think when you look at the, Roseanne had done some work with the teams and for social emotional learning of looking at the CASEL standards and what's appropriate for that age level, that grade level, as to what students should be able to do. And taking that along with the responsive classroom components and creating a common language for teachers to use, so that, you know, if you're in second grade and no matter what teacher you have, we're still using those same core competencies that are centered around those there, in addition to others. There's a lot more than we put on this, but we didn't want to make it too long or too overwhelming. These were the ones that teachers felt were the most important. But yes, Roseanne in her SEL work did a lot of that in the fall of aligning those to the grade levels.
Thank you.
Yep. I can share that with you guys.
That'd be
too.
great.
Yeah.
I think it's fantastic.
That's a good question.
Yep.
Can I piggyback on that, Rebecca, just before?
I want to
sorry.
piggyback when you're
Oh, okay.
piggybacking. No, go
We
ahead.
might- We and I have the same. So just, and I tried to, when Roseanne was here last week, we started kind of this conversation, and I tried to, so what happens if they're not, are there interventions? Like, how are we helping them if they're not meeting? Is it the same as if they weren't in the standards base? Like, what happens if you get
In
I
this-
can't
in
remember the
SEL
letters and my
piece, yeah.
computer died, but, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of carryover if you still look at the habits of mind that from the old report card to this.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
a different wording. So there's a lot of carryover. I mean, and it's easy for us to even take our core values and still apply those to all of those things. I think what was most important is that the kids understand that language better, and I think that's what we wrap second step around in our morning meeting conversations and our themes at all school meetings. And just, again, the relationships that we have with kids, all of those things are taught all the time when you're interacting with children in a school. You know, we're either modeling it for them or redirecting them, or complimenting them, right, when we see them demonstrate them, so.
And I think when we have kids that are really veering off course with some of these, they are brought to our student support team, SST, and, you know, we look at, you know, our behavior is communication, so. you
And
know,
this is like the heart of the relationships
Yeah.
that the adults have with children in a
Right.
building. So, I mean, that's almost more important, actually,
Yeah.
in my mind sometimes, than, I think that leads how well they do on the performance standards.
Yeah, yeah. And then Joanne mentioned our adjustment counselors. They get involved a lot with the kids who maybe are struggling in these areas, and it's been a huge addition to have an adjustment counselor on the staff.
And that's
for that
actually another
reason.
interesting layer of our onion to peel by looking at our data from our links and connection surveys, is the kids who mentioned the guidance counselor, right? And the skills that they're working on.
Thank you. Sorry, Rebecca, go ahead.
No, not at all. I sort of in that, I think this is sort of similar to what Amy was asking, but so if you, let's say you have a you know, you're totally meeting this standard, but at the end of third grade, where's the growth? Like, is there an articulation of what that growth would look like the next year? And in that same vein, I think, like, you know, neurodevelopment of kids is fascinating, and I would love to articulate those things in a way that is actually translated to parents, where it's like, hey, this is actually what is like developmentally appropriate for your kid to be able to do at this age. Because I think, like, sometimes I'm at home looking at my kid having a like utter meltdown, and I'm like, is this normal? And you know, and this also, this is just commentary, but I love that this is a thing, because the kid I see at home, you know, is a kid that is in a very safe space, and to know how they are in school is amazingly helpful to me as a parent, and I think across the board that's true. But
And I know it's hard to see, but when you, like, we're so lucky since they've reorganized the district, at least I feel like, because I get the children for 5 years, and we actually have the longest age span. I know probably every sixth grader better than any other adult in the building, right? And you see the growth. I mean, it may not be like the next year, but we are lucky that we see a second grader as a sixth grader in Nature's Classroom, and it's like phenomenal. So it's hard as a parent, you know, but when we have a bigger span, it's there. It really is.
But yeah, I think finding ways to get more information to parents and working with them to collaborate on what we're expecting from a second grader all the way up to a sixth grader is critical. And I think that's where our teams during conferences, report card comments, hopefully are highlighting some of those areas as well, making sure that parents are familiar with that so they can support at home as we know they want to.
Steve, I had a question, Joanne and Steve, about, so for the professional development, so the ALICE simulations or simulators. And then I loved how you added on your piece at the end about support for teachers' mental health and things. I was wondering if that was going to be a piece of it on that upcoming training. I know that can be a really difficult and it's an unfortunate thing that we have to do in our country. But is that a piece of it too? Will there be supports, I guess, for teachers that day is my question? And if not, can you think about it?
Yeah, recently I met with Mark, and he's done a great job during these trainings of making sure staff know, like, setting up beforehand, like, almost like safe words, and if someone needs a simulation to stop, making sure they can remove themselves from it. And that's part of the training beforehand, before they dive into actually doing some of those, you know, semi-live situations. It is very unfortunate, and we just unfortunately saw recently another incident in Iowa, and so it's a necessary thing that we have to do, but it does bring up a lot of difficult conversations, and you certainly don't leave feeling good after that day.
No, but it's also interesting too, because, and I want to say this in a positive way, but when we first started doing ALICE, you know, it's been, what, 5 years maybe?
Or more, I think. more
The
than that.
staff is in a different place when we first started than they are now. It's almost just become a practicality of our world and what they, you know, I'm trying to say that in a more positive way. But the awareness is greater, right, of the need for it. And so I think they're stronger,
Yeah.
I guess I'm trying to say. in a sense.
Yeah, but, yeah, and then typically, like, I know Joanne and I will stay afterwards and talk to anybody as long as they need to, you know, answer any questions they have and reassure them as best we can.
And there are a lot more resources for schools and children now over the last few years that
Yeah.
we've provided for them as well.
Yeah.
We do a lot of I would say, practicing of conversations with children. Some of the teachers that maybe aren't as experienced will come sit with us and ask us what's good wording to use, or, you know, here's a book I
Yeah.
found, what do you think about this kind of stuff?
And I think there's little things too, like, sometimes I think goes unnoticed. We see it, but whether it's an additional door swipe, like we had installed this year, our identity system that's scanning the ID, like, those things we see on a daily basis that most people probably don't even think about, but, you know, through making sure that there's budgets for those items,
Yeah.
it really does add a layer of safety in, you know, for us.
The
And
children
kids-
are more aware.
the
They're
kids
more
are more
aware.
aware.
So they feel safer too. If they're in my office having lunch with me or something, you know, I have a monitor just for the cameras, and they're very curious about the cameras.
Yep.
But they're like, wow, you know, the first thing I want to look at,
Yeah.
you know, but then
Yeah.
they like, you can see everything and.
And the fact that the dispatch and the police station can see the schools, you know, from our cameras, like, all those little things are huge, and don't go unnoticed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And by the children too.
yeah.
Thank you. That was,
Yeah.
I appreciate that answer. And it's actually nice. I don't often get a bigger picture all together sometimes, like we do those things piecemeal, and that was a nice kind of wrap up on that. Any other questions for Amy?
I just have one small question about the survey that you've done. Have you noticed through all of the efforts that you've been putting in since COVID, are the numbers of students who don't list an adult going down?
You know, honestly, when I look at my data, and it's so fresh for me right now, it's 589 children I think I had with absenteeism. I gave them a few weeks to get it done with their kids because it was all online. We didn't do second grade just because I think it was
Yeah, second grade's
too
too
young,
young.
but
Yeah.
they're now the second grade teachers, I want my second grade data, you know, kind of thing. So we're going to get them into it the next one. I'm planning on doing it every trimester with a different question focus. And so, but around the kids' feelings about school and the adults and relationships. But I only had, it was really kind of cute, they're kids. I only had 2 children tell me, I don't need any help from the teachers at Millbury Street School.
Okay.
You know, my dad helps me with everything. You know? So I was like, I'm not going to argue with that one.
Yeah.
So, you know, it was cute. And one of the kids was, I had 2 out of all of them. And so, and you had to know the kids to know that was completely appropriate response for that child. But I think that's pretty good.
That is
odds
really,
that they
really,
all
really
mentioned
good.
something, yeah.
And we've always seen very few too. We didn't notice a huge difference, although I will say there have been kids that had commented that the hybrid year, like going back a few years, our older elementary kids really did not like that. I don't think we liked it. No one liked it. But I really think that they lost some of that connection. They felt it. I don't think they could put it into words. But it was hard at that time, as we all know, of course, in so many ways.
Yeah.
And then one of the questions we do ask later in the year, going back to that small problem, is did it get better? And it really tries to target that last piece, following up to ensure the
yeah.
problem is solved. The national average on kids being asked that is only like 28% say it got better. And our average has been much higher, like in the 70s with that. So, you know, we'd love it to be 100, but when you compare that to the national average, like that's a pretty good, you know, place to start. But
Right.
I really like that question because I know that the initial conversation is really important, but kids need to know after the fact that you're supporting
Yeah.
them, and that not just with the bullying case, for example, the victim, but also the aggressor, to make sure they both have what they need
Yeah.
to get to change that
Yeah.
and move forward and get back to that state of feeling comfortable and
Yeah.
safe at school.
And that, I think, triggers all back to just ensuring that the teachers and the staff know that they need to take a forced pause in a moment and listen and give
Yep.
the children enough time to explain themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you do give them a couple extra minutes, sometimes the problem is right, the solution is right in front of you. So that listening, kids value so much that they want to know that the adult listens.
I love that. Liz, did you?
Just one more thing I was saving, but I was just really encouraged to see all of the activities that the kids are able to be involved in at Millbury Street and at North Street School. I've been hearing through the course of the last year reports of a pretty significant drop-off in the number of kids who are involved in activities in middle school and in high school. It seems like participation, enrollment, and interest seems to have dwindled over the past several years. And you know, the kids who are graduating this year started high school during COVID, so you don't know, like, if that's part of it, and we're sort of seeing that movement go through. But I think finding or giving opportunities for kids to find their interests in those grades, in the upper elementary school grades, is so important. And then they are able to carry that through in middle school and kind of build on that. And there's a lot of opportunities available to them in middle school, but it's like I'm hearing that they're not grabbing them, and maybe coming up in the next few years, if they've had some more opportunities, kind of figure out some things they like, and then they go to middle school and they have those opportunities, hopefully we'll start to see, more participation in those things, and then that builds into high school, and I hope to see that, but I think it starts there, so.
That's interesting, because a lot of the clubs are clubs that kids have actually initiated.
That's
They
great.
come to us and they say, I want to save the oceans. I'm like, well, we're having a club, and
That's
so-
great. That's
but
amazing.
It is, I mean,
Yeah.
because I'll never turn a child down that wants to, make a difference,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
very
we had a girl who's in 7th grade now, Felicity. You might know Felicity Prile. She is a archer. She's in an archery club outside of
yeah.
school. She wanted to bring it to our schools,
And yeah, came to our school
Yeah.
too, yeah.
she worked with getting Mrs. Peters trained, because you can't just
And
do
Mr.
archery. You
Oberman.
have to be trained.
Yeah,
And
Mr.
Mr. Oberman, renting the equipment for free, and it ran for the last 2 years.
And they've already secured it again this year, so we
Yeah.
had archery club after school
Mhm.
too, so
Yep,
it's
so-
pretty cool.
Yeah, so I think it's great that the students have a voice and leadership in what some of those clubs can be.
That's great. Rebecca?
Now I have two things, but I had one, but I'm gonna say something about, I also really appreciate how many after-school programs there are, because, I came from a single-parent household, and I didn't have, my mom couldn't pick me up and then take me somewhere, and it's like having that right after school where those kids can stay later, and hopefully a parent can grab them is fabulous, and I really love there's like that Apple Tree Arts thing going on right now, like there's.
Grafton Rec uses our buildings
Yep.
too.
Yeah, there's some really great stuff right after school, which I think is just fabulous for accessibility. I really miss the ski program, though. I'm just gonna throw that out
I
there.
know, we
That's Grafton
Yeah.
Rec.
Yeah,
Correct,
it's a
yeah.
real bummer. But not related to that, on one of the slides, you were talking about increasing PLC time, and I was wondering how much PLC time do your teachers get, and do you have other ideas for increasing it? As a
Yeah.
previous
Well, you wanna know
teacher,
how
I
we
always
had to
wanted more.
increase it, what we did? So, these are data meetings. They alternate their weeks between Jenny.
Mostly data meetings, they do, yeah.
Well, yeah, but
yeah.
but
looking at test scores.
we call them
and- yeah.
data
Yeah.
meetings,
Got it.
but they did a lot of work on the report card implementation. The principals cover the recesses.
I see.
So on Thursdays, I have 3 recesses in a row. It's really fun. It is fun. But I like it because I'm all about relationships, and so I'm out there with the kids for an hour
Like being
and a half.
outside
so
and
it's great.
hanging out with the kids, it's great,
Yep.
but, yeah.
They all tell me what they need and want, and
Yeah.
I listen. Try to do what I can.
And we also try to creatively schedule prep times to allow for at least once a week where their teams are able to get together during that time if they
Yeah.
want to, and then being creative with our PD time,
Yeah.
and as we mentioned, and also our staff meeting time.
And they have monthly common planning meetings that they do hold. And,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, we're big believers that the staff, I think staff meetings should be some of it, just like you would a classroom, like, there's a mini lesson component, and then let them
Let
do
them
the
go.
work. Let them do that, have that time to do some of that work. Yep.
Yeah.
Great. Well, I want to thank you both for coming out on this awful evening. You can tell by the amount of questions, the enthusiasm for both of you. Jay and Mandy, I'm sorry, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Thank you very much. It was
Thank
perfect.
Yeah, it was great
Thanks
to
for the
see you.
time.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
So much growth, I feel like, in both of your buildings. It's wonderful to see. And
We really appreciate, Joanne and I were talking before, like combined, we have 22 years now in Grafton, and we just are very thankful to be here in Grafton and have been here for so long.
well, we're thankful. Well,
Yes.
I'm thankful. I shouldn't speak for everybody. Maybe others aren't, but I'm thankful to see both of you year after year. So thanks for your great work. And I'd love to come in and see that innovation studio.
Yeah.
So I know I owe a visit.
Come
So
anytime,
yeah. Great. Well,
Thank you.
please drive
Right.
carefully.
Yes.
Thank you
Hopefully
guys.
it's raining now.
Yeah, it was
It was
raining when I got here.
raining when I got
So hopefully, it's raining. And speaking of which, I jumped right in, but I forgot to mention that we did have on our agenda, the, buddy bench. We gave them an excuse just because of the weather. We didn't want them out, so we will get them hopefully next, as soon as their availability, we'll get them right back on. So I didn't overlook it, and I forgot to tell you all that. Or maybe you got an email, I don't know.
I assumed.
You made a good, you used your critical thinking skills and thought, but then I looked and realized I didn't say it, so. Thank you both.
Good night.
Right, and next up, we're going to have some budget update from
Yep.
Dr. Cummings.
So I
Welcome.
provided a one-page summary from Kathleen as to where we stand with the FY24 budget as of the 29th of December. We expect or think that we're on track for FY '24. The spring always can provide some twists and turns. In terms of the lines, there are a couple lines that we're keeping an eye on. Subs, for example, subs and technology. Technology, I feel like every year we have to watch that. That's one that's generally front-loaded, so we don't end up, most of our costs are at the beginning of the year. But at the same time, we're to the good in a number of other lines, therapeutic services right now. Last year, that was on the watch list. We were keeping a close eye on that. Now we're trending in a very good way. So the hope is that we can break even for FY '24, end the year without having to dip into any revolving funds. And then those funds obviously can be used for FY '25 or beyond. And we're going to rethink the subline. We may do that for '25 if we can, but that means creating some different account lines. It's a little bit tricky. But in that subline, we have three buckets on one line, and we really should break that out eventually, be it in '25 or '26. So that includes regular daily subs, that when you think of a sub, also includes long-term subs. So that's when we hire often, or when we can, a licensed educator who might come in for 2 months. It could be 6 months. It could be 8 months. So that's a big number to add into that one bucket. And then the third piece, if we're hiring paras and we post and we cannot find a para for a position that we need, we have to go through an agency. We pay more to do that. We try to avoid it at all costs, but sometimes we just have to. So that cost is also in that bucket. So it's not as clean and as simple as we'd like it to be. That's been the clean and simple piece. I love Kathleen's approach. We're going through, all of our practices have been very sound. I don't want to give the impression that that's not the case, but I think she's done a beautiful job just rethinking everything. I mean, we are daily going through lines and just making sure that that line represents whatever the real purpose is. So I think she's doing fantastic work. So that's the FY '24 part. Any questions on '24? We're not worried about it, so that's a good thing.
And that's 24, obviously, through the end of the school year.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep, end of June. All right, a little more worried about '25. So I have about 7 or 8 slides. I tried to summarize everything. I had hoped, I've met a number of times with Evan, the town administrator, and Mary. We had hoped to have that forecast that I've been talking about since like October. We thought we'd have it for this meeting so that I could pull out pieces, and at the same time that Evan talked to the select board and made that presentation, I wouldn't give the same presentation, but could at least have a few slides speaking to it. They're not ready to present, so they're going to wait until I think it's the 26th. So in 2 weeks, he's going to present the preliminary FY '25 budget for the town and that forecast. So I took out the pieces I had about forecasting, and I'm focusing just on '25. So I put maybe 7 slides together. Some of it will be review, and then it will catch us up to where we are today. So, as you know, we've been reviewing the requests from the district leadership team. We haven't had many new position requests, and the few that we've had have been around class size. At this point, I do think that we're going to be able to shift existing staff around so that our class sizes are just fine. New curriculum, I'm going to talk about that in a little bit, but you've heard from Jen, maybe Tracy Kalo as well, I can't remember, about new curriculum. So there's a ton of pressure from the state to basically make sure that all districts have really strong curriculum in all areas, but especially literacy and math. And we've been doing that work really for 2 years. So that's a big item for '25. We've reviewed the major cost centers. Most of these directors have presented to the school committee. We tech, special education, maintenance, transportation, and then building budgets. Building budgets, for the most part, are level funded in the grand scheme of things because they don't include, they're almost entirely supplies. They're not huge drivers for us. Challenges, two of the bigger ones, we are just entering into negotiations with our 4 units. We have teachers, paraprofessionals, nurses, and custodians, and ESSER funding is spent out. So at the end of this year, no more ESSER funding. We've exhausted all of ours at this point anyhow. That ESSER funding is what largely got all districts through COVID. For us, the total over the entirety of COVID to really 3 years was it was 946,000, which was fantastic. Our last installment was about 100,000, so we were kind of, in a nice way, weaned off of it. You'll hear a lot about the fact that ESSER funding is coming to an end in larger districts because they receive so much money that there was a real cliff. We had a self-imposed natural decline as opposed to you're cut off, and then you'd have to really scramble. In terms of the process, I just want to review those conditions and assumptions. We're assuming that we're going to have STEP and COLA increases. Right now, we're planning on our entitlement grants being funded at the typical levels. Chapter 70 remaining stable. We're hoping that special ed circuit breaker is fully funded at 75% again. You may remember last year out of district tuition increased by, I think it was 17%. Or 14, I think it was 14%. This year, the early talk is that we can count on it being just below 5%, which is an awful lot better. Unless we change our fee structure, we're going to assume that the revolving accounts will be funded at their current levels. There is no doubt in my mind that for FY26 or 25, we're going to have to rely more on other funding sources than we currently do. Some of those funds include transportation fees, facility rental fees, preschool tuition, solar, and our largest by far is school choice. We bring in about $900,000 a year through school choice. With all of these revolver accounts, we already have built in year after year funding for personnel. We have some stuff, but it's largely personnel. For example, out of school choice, every year we have at least $250,000 offset for personnel that get paid out of that. It still gives us that leeway, that rainy day fund that's invaluable. So like last year when a water heater goes down, we don't have to run and have a special town meeting. We have flexibility and we can utilize revolver funds to cover that. The more we typically can almost keep in that emergency fund, obviously the better. I don't see a scenario whereby we're not going to have to dip into that more than usual for 25. So 25 is the 5th year post-override. So right at the outset of COVID, we had our second successful override vote. And without saying it, my goal, and I think the goal of the committee, was to secure appropriate funding for the next 5 years. Granted, at that time, we weren't really planning on COVID. But the thought, and at least to me, is always try to secure the funding through the generosity and the support of the town. That's fantastic. And spend it in a way that we don't have to go back and ask for more before those 5 years is up. And we're looking to be on track to do just that. The 5th year, the 2 times we've done it, have been the tightest out of the 10 years in total. You just don't have any more capacity in that 5th year, when obviously in the previous years, you can spend even more knowing that you're basically kicking that can down the road. As I mentioned, I think FY25 is without a doubt going to be challenging, and we're going to need to depend more on those revolving accounts than we have previously. For variables, we've got the undefined COLA for the 4 units, of course, because we're just starting negotiations. Level of state funding, that's a huge question. I've been attending collaboratives and the consortiums with other superintendents, this is what we talk about the whole time. There are probably 25 all told districts. Not once have I heard a story that doesn't mirror ours, and quite often it's significantly worse. So there's going to be a lot of pressure from all corners to receive additional state funding. The curriculum initiative, that's going to be an interesting one, in that you may recall, I'm sure I shared it with you back in the fall, the science of reading. There was a ton of talk about literacy with the Boston Globe and high-quality instructional materials. There's a lot of pressure from that on DESE to further that initiative. I mean, that's a bread and butter initiative for everybody to have high-quality curriculum. But with that, there has to come funding. Curriculum's incredibly expensive. I mean, it was expensive way back. I'm dating myself when it was just books. Now we've got all the book materials, the consumables, but you have everything tech-wise too. It's shockingly expensive for us and everybody else. There is the commissioner called for a superintendent meeting online tomorrow. There isn't an agenda, so I don't know what's going to be discussed, but it has come up through many people that they suspect that's at least going to be the topic. Ideally, they say, we've got X billion dollars and you're all getting it. Odds are that won't happen. That would be fantastic.
Come on, can we just live in that dream world for once?
I mean, that would be great, but the
X billion
discussion
dollars.
is very much on the table. Last year, they definitely saw this coming, and they put a high-quality instructional material competitive grant out to the whole state. We applied, we didn't get it. There didn't seem to be a rhyme or reason. Some really affluent districts got it, some less affluent didn't get it. It was all over the place, but a very limited pot. If they're going to do this right, it's got to be a significant amount of money. So I'm very interested to see not only what happens tomorrow, and that purely by the rumor mill, am I getting that that's the topic? It may not be. But without a doubt, I want to know how that's going to play out, because we'd have to weigh out, do we look to invest in this $500,000 where it could be in a few months we have actual funding? And I've yet to see a case where you can go and make that investment and then say, oh, what about us? We bought that 2 years ago. Can't we have the money? That's not going to work. So I want to be really smart and strategic about that. And lastly, the variable of transportation, out-of-district tuition increases. Now that we know, or we think that tuition increase is going to be just under 5%, I feel a lot better about that. And I feel better. This week we did a lot of work with transportation, and I feel like our number's pretty solid on that. Okay, so to give you an idea of where we stand, big picture right now, we took that initial school request, so that's everything that everybody's come forward with this is what we'd like. It's not a perfect list, but I think we do an exceptional job in not having it be a fairy tale wish list. I've been in plenty of districts where people put in everything in the kitchen sink, knowing that it's not going to stick, if you will. So it's a pretty realistic number at 46,723, 46 million. I'll say 46.7 million. Through Evan and Mary are the initial, and this could certainly change. This was about maybe a week and a half ago. They're estimating that our allocation for the school district would be, or for the schools would be just over 45 million, leaving an initial difference of 1.7 million. Part of this difference is going to be offset by salaries and costs that are already paid through entitlement grants and revolving accounts. So earlier I talked about how we have $250,000 paid out of school choice, for example. Same with Title I, IDEA grant, we have like 7 different entitlement grants. Some of them we pay salaries out of, some of them they're just too small and we don't. So we're working on that. It was actually today. I think we'll be done with that work tomorrow. But again, we just want to take it step by step with Kathleen to kind of start from the foundational level and build up. So we're going through every single grant, every single revolver, and basically building from scratch. I am very confident that that preliminary difference after we do that is going to be just over $1 million, that deficit. I think it's going to be $1,060,000, around there. And that, again, isn't spending more revolvers or more from entitlement grants. That's just, that number would be based on doing what we've done annually. Does that make any sense? Yeah? All right. So approach and next steps, define that deficit that we're talking about, make sure that the number on the town side that we're being provided is most updated, update everything that I just talked about. Basically work our first draft of the budget book and make sure that everything's as it should be, so we know what kind of reality we're looking at. I would present to you, if we need to cut that deficit, which we're going to have a deficit, what my recommended course of action in terms of reduction, be it personnel, positions, stuff, equipment, et cetera. I have to work on that. I would recommend that the school committee invite the town administrator to present on the town budget forecast. I did anticipate that the committee may want to do that and reached out to Evan and asked about the 26th, our next 26th, whatever our next meeting is, and then the meeting after that, because he's planning to present both the budget and the forecast to the select board. He said to me that if asked, he would be able to present on the 6th. As I mentioned, I want to
Jay,
grain. Yep.
I'm sorry, can I interrupt you for
Of
1
course.
second, just for technical? I don't know, I heard we had a flicker of power, I don't know if people felt that. And I guess the feed got knocked out. I don't know
Oh.
if you know how to reset
No,
it.
one little thing.
Okay,
All I know.
so we'll just take a pause, if that's okay with the committee?
I'm glad you said that, because I was wondering, and I didn't know how
that.
to
Well,
check.
I will thank Mandy, or Mr. Mandy. It's true. It's true, but
Okay.
I'm
So
guessing,
we're in recess. Yay.
we can take an official recess.
Well, you kind of did.
I didn't vote, I just made this call.
Called it.
Well, I don't want to lose, this is important.
What happened?
Yeah.
Did you write down the time? For,
Yeah, when was that
Eight,
flicker?
the flicker, I don't know.
no, I didn't either. But I suppose we can make it up. I mean. he's
Well, we'll
got stuff.
notice, they'll figure it out, because it'll, when Rebecca goes to review, Rebecca Mahoney goes to review, she'll know, because we'll lose it. I guess we still had audio, is that correct?
Tell if it's back on? I don't know how you figured that out.
Only via text message.
Yeah, like everyone you know wasn't texting you.
I bet Amy, did you get any?
My understanding is that it paused for a bit and then just the audio picked up, and your audio is still continuing at this time.
All right.
Good to know.
How about
Books.
video?
The video is now working.
Okay,
It was off.
okay.
Okay.
It's now,
Okay.
My understanding is that we are up and running.
All right. So
Wow,
mentioned-
Jay Cummings, that is your future for you, a retirement job
that's
maybe.
all I did. I mentioned inviting the TA to present. I already mentioned, I want to get a better understanding of state funding, as we all do, and that curriculum funding that I talked about. We're close to finishing that preliminary budget book, and define how much revolver funding we have left, we think that we're going to have left over from FY '24, and be able to basically lay out what we have in reserves, what we anticipate bringing in during the 24-25 school year, and having that obviously on the table as something that we can utilize if needed, if the committee decides to do so. And yep, that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Questions? Liz?
So when the TA presented that initial number, or came up with an initial number, can you talk a little bit about, it feels like is it really too early to think about that number too much? Because
I don't know what he based it on. I know
Yeah.
percentage-wise, it was just under what we received last year. I wish I remembered off the
it was
top of my
under
head.
what we received last
Yep.
Okay.
Which we kind of anticipated last year. We spent a little more. We knew 25 was going to be tough. That didn't shock me. I want to say it was it was just under.
Okay.
Like, I want to say 30,000 or something.
But he may not have at that time done numbers to anticipate next year's growth and all that.
Absolutely. And I
Oh,
guess
okay,
I'm going
okay.
to guess that's to some degree what he's wrestling with
Yeah,
now. I mean, they were
okay.
initially planning to present it tonight, and I know they were working some new numbers.
Yeah.
I'd love to cross my fingers and hope that it all goes in a positive way and things are
Yeah.
better for us. So there wasn't, I don't know what drove that number. I just
Okay.
reached out and said, do you have a rough one? And they gave us a pretty exact one.
Yeah. Okay.
Any other questions? I mean, I think Liz kind of summed it up with that, if it's a little too soon. I would absolutely, I don't know how the committee feels, love to invite Evan. I mean, unless we want to try to minimize his time, and, no, I'd love for him to come up. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
You seem to be happy to do
Great,
so.
yeah.
So I'll say the 6th, and then, well, we'll
February
see if
6th?
they're,
February 6th.
it would be February 6th. If he's ready, we're going to have to see what happens in 2 weeks. But if I'm not going to present his entire presentation.
No,
But if we
yeah.
had a few key slides that could be done that I could speak to, it would help all of us with a more detailed book by that point.
Yeah.
Combined with some kind of basic forecast that really comes from them.
Yeah,
I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like we're uncomfortable because it's just changed so much for
Oh,
us
yeah.
that I'm still wrestling with that uncomfortableness of just,
Me
it's
too.
January and,
100%.
but it's okay. That doesn't mean we
Yeah.
can't be flexible, and learn. Okay. Any other questions, for Jay at this point? Obviously, we're gonna be talking about this a lot.
Yeah.
And I think we'll start talking about 25, 26, right? That's gonna be a big one that we need to start circling the wagons on.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Okay, thanks, Jay. Oh, do you wanna,
We're gonna,
I was wondering if we wanted to post the calendar.
We can post it, only the committee can see it.
Oh,
My camera skills
nope.
are lacking in this one shot.
Yeah, I think it's just a wide angle shot of all of us this whole time.
You can't see our
Yeah,
faces at
that's-
all, by the way.
Yeah. Oh,
The
good.
green line is right through my face.
That's fine.
Excellent. It's not your fault, Jay.
I know,
know-
but I
they
don't
know
know
who we
how
are.
to
It's
do
not
that.
his
I know
fault.
this.
As long as you can hear it,
Well, no,
minutes
'cause
can be
We're all
taken.
here.
we just, all he could do was turn it on. We
Right.
need, that's why I
Yeah.
was wondering,
No.
like, without an operator, there's this.
So basically, I did my hair for nothing, is what you're saying. I'm wearing a nice new shade
Sorry,
of
it looks
lipstick.
like
Good thing I walked through the rain and nobody knows.
We're doing our best.
No, it's great.
We have
Look,
audio, we have
we're lucky.
video.
We're lucky. Well, then never mind. Let's not put anything on. We all can see the calendar. So we had a small group, or we had a quorum, but for people who weren't here in December, Jay presented a draft. We felt pretty good about it. And now we're bringing it back because hopefully if you weren't here, you had a chance to look at it and provided any feedback. But if you didn't, that's okay. We still don't have to make a final decision tonight, but, did you have something to say?
Good.
Excellent.
Thank you for letting me say it.
Jay, comments?
I didn't mess with it. I just didn't want different versions at this point. But the two things that were discussed and not decided on, one was making the early release date that on the draft is on October 30th. The discussion was, do you put it on the 31st being Halloween? And the other one was around, the other issue was around November 5th, voting day. That right now I put it on as a parent conference day. And that, I think those were the two big topics.
Yep.
Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah,
I remember.
yeah, and yes.
So what are thoughts about the voting day? Of whether they've changed since, or?
I think the concern was, I thought we decided to keep it to the three of us that were here. I thought the concern was, and correct me, it's been months of cheese and, I don't know. But
Cheese and baked
that,
goods.
that teachers may not, one, would they not have the opportunity to get to vote, because they were doing conferences that day, but then it was reminded that we have early voting, we have lots of opportunities in the state next year for them to get to vote, so we felt like that was okay. I thought that,
Yeah.
and we were happy with that because, we wouldn't have to have another day, which was originally proposed, that we would close for conferences and for election day. So
And
this-
Veterans
And I think
Day.
we came to the conclusion 2 years ago, or that we liked it on that day. So I think we felt comfortable about that. Is that correct? But obviously, and I don't mean to call out Rebecca and Liz, but, if you have concerns, that's why we didn't vote on it. We wanted to, have the whole committee. And then the Halloween, I think we also decided we were gonna try to just keep on the Wednesday, that parents like the consistency of it being the last Wednesday of the month, except,
It's easier to schedule childcare.
For childcare? But then.
If it's always
the-
Wednesdays and they're not using our after-school care program,
Uh-huh.
it's just
And
easier.
We make the exception for voting day because it's an exceptional day, and.
that's
not-
closed
That's
though.
closed.
So it's closed, so
Right.
it's not the half-day situation, okay. Got it, yeah, okay.
But otherwise, it kinda comes out pretty cleanly.
Yeah.
So just throwing another question in that bucket though, with the childcare and, is childcare different on Halloween or something? Is that, I don't know, does that change anything for the childcare situation?
What
Is it-
people,
I-
what people have said to
can't
me
remember.
is, it's easier to say, I need additional after-school care the last Wednesday of the month
Mhm.
on these months, and then the Wednesday in May, than it is to say, oh, by the way, now we gotta do the Thursday instead.
Okay.
The
Okay.
concern, the personal concern I have about moving to Halloween is we get into that tricky holiday situation that we've discussed,
Mhm.
where we really don't treat non-state holidays any differently. And that's how we're able to maintain the calendar that we have. We don't give off for religious holidays, and Halloween is a religious holiday. Even if some of us don't observe it as one, it is one. And if we were seen to even give that as a half-day, now we are giving special treatment to one group of people. And that is not something that I think we should be doing. So,
When I took a look at the calendar before this meeting, I thought it looked good. I mean,
Why is
Doesn't
the
have
May one not the last Wednesday?
Memorial Day, maybe?
Oh, I'm just
Too
curious.
often the same
Right, is
week?
it too close? I'm just wondering, because every single other one is, I don't really care.
Yeah, you're
Wondering.
correct, but
Okay,
not based on any kind of science. Just
it is what it is.
back for a day, then a half day.
Okay, that's fair.
Okay, well, it seems to me perhaps we could take a motion.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion, Madam Chair, that we accept the 2024 calendar. Oh my God, it's
You can do it,
very
Nora,
confusing.
with all the
The
cheese.
2024 to 2025 calendar as presented.
second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion?
I'll give a second to you, Amy.
All in favor? All right, well, this will make, we only saw one question about it in advance, which was pretty good. This is the quickest I think we've ever given a calendar.
January 9th, all right, folks.
Well
Look
done.
out
You're
for it,
welcome,
plan your
Grafton.
vacations.
Yeah, first day of school.
There you go. It is
And it's
done.
not drastic, so I don't think anyone's gonna be knocked off their socks by it. Very exciting. Let's take a moment to celebrate that. Okay, we have a superintendent report tonight.
Yep, just 4 quick things. We have that rescheduled GMS or GHS gymnasium dedication for the great Jim Pignataro coming up at 5 p.m. this Thursday, January 11th. I'm not quite sure how, but I'm participating on the Grafton Opioid Subcommittee, and that's focused on the town receiving federal funds from the opioid company. We've had our third meeting met today, and I wasn't able to attend. But it's been very positive. I think there are 17 people, police chief, people from all different aspects of the town. But it's been great as it develops. I think certainly within the next couple months, I'll be able to report out on how some of those funds may impact the schools and certainly the youth of Grafton. So it's been terrific. At the last student advisory meeting that the school committee held, one of the students, or a number of them, mentioned that they didn't have an advisor for the Model UN. And I must have, during that meeting, volunteered. I am now the Model UN advisor.
Amazing.
I don't know what that means,
I
but
did too.
you did?
I think,
Oh,
Oh, you guys.
wonderful. I don't remember
I remember
anything.
you did volunteer.
So we have our first meeting coming up this week, and we're going to a conference to do something in February.
We'll be Model UNing in February.
after-
Model UN kids come in here and tell us what they do.
100%.
Hey, don't you know what a Model
They-
UN does?
I do, but I just.
It seems great.
Squirm.
Yeah, I've never,
Do you? It's so cool.
So
it sounds great.
have you already gotten kids to sign up for it?
Well, we'll see who shows up at the first meeting, but
Yeah.
we've been advertising the last few weeks.
In all different
real-
languages? Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, the real test is see who shows up for the second meeting.
Yeah, you're right.
Like the first
Yeah,
meeting's
you're totally
usually
right.
good, but then
Those who, they're
keep-
very into
I'm
it,
sure
I can
you
tell
will,
you that.
'cause
So cool.
And then just, lastly, just piggybacking off of what Steve and Joanne talked about, they talked about their tech engineering spaces. We did the same thing at the middle school. And we just finished end of last week. I actually went over there to take photos for tonight. I did go over there, had a lovely visit, and forgot to take a single photo. So I will come back on the 23rd with photos. That space, no matter what we did previously, if you've been in the tech ed room at the middle school, it's maybe the most bland room in the history of rooms. It used to be a maintenance garage. And it's nice, it's fine, but it's the height of bland, or it was. Now it's all colors, and it just night and day difference.
Awesome.
I was super impressed, so much so I forgot to take a photo. Yeah, that's all I have.
Thank you. Any questions for Jay? If you follow Neil Trahan on Facebook, he posted a bunch.
Oh, good,
Yeah,
good.
they're really nice. I don't know. But we'd love to see him.
Same company, same everything.
Are we invited, we told our student reps not to come tonight again. We don't want them out driving. I'm sure they would promote the class of 2025 fundraiser dance.
Yeah,
Winter
that's
ball.
January 20th, I believe. Sort of a winter theme, and I think tickets are on sale this week. They are $10. Sorry, I'm struggling with to fill in. But hopefully kids will go. I think it's semi-formal, and it looks like a lot of fun, so hopefully kids will go.
And I'm sure they'd have other wonderful things to say. So we'll catch up with them next time.
Sorry, I'm no substitute for
No, you're amazing. Okay, and now we have Mandy Leap joining us at the table,
I
which
know.
is very exciting. And she has a human resource report.
Yes, you have a copy of it. I just wanted to provide all of you with an update of where we are in all things related to human resources. Last spoke with all of you in September, I believe. So there have been lots of things related to hiring happening since then, and I just wanted to outline all of that for you. Ballpark is that we are in a really good place hiring-wise. We had a number of open positions at the start of the school year, many of which have been filled by some really wonderful people joining our district. We did have a very small number of resignations, maintenance department, custodial department, that sort of thing, that we have filled as well. We've also been working very hard to hire our open paraprofessional spots. We do currently have 3 that are still open, but even since I uploaded this PDF, we've been making moves with that as well. So I'm very thankful for all of the hard work that our building administrators have been putting in. Nicole McDonald's been working really hard to hire for paraprofessionals as well. And, you know, we're in the lovely month of January, which is great in terms of substitute coverage. All of our wonderful former students are home from break and enthusiastically subbing in our buildings. I think if you were to ask me what I was not expecting when taking this role, it would be the number of substitute orientations that I would have to run. I hold them at this point weekly, just to go over all things related to practices and protocols for substitutes, but they all came home from break ready and willing to make a little extra money and to help us out in our buildings, which has been wonderful as well. I've hired a number of my former students, which has also been very fun and exciting for me. But we do expect that sub-fill rate to go down a little bit once they all return from break rather. But overall, our building administrators are really creative when it comes to finding that sub coverage as well. So we're in a good place. Any questions?
Great job,
Good
Mandy.
work.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, and then future agenda. So when we were discussing about inviting Evan, that corresponds with our budget hearing, which I still think is fine. I mean, I think the budget hearing, I guess, in my opinion, is people can come and share what they're passionate about. I mean, I think, we think about it as if we're making these dramatic cuts, people are gonna come in and share that they really want us to keep X, Y, Z, and that sort of thing. So I guess I don't feel at first I was uncomfortable, but when I sat with it for a little bit, I'm less uncomfortable about having it on that day. Is anybody else?
Well, it did occur to me that.
Seems
it's-
weird.
It'd be nice to have him talk before.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, we can certainly move it, can't we?
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
if I could just point out, it would cut our Student Advisory Council meeting short.
I also, I don't love that.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point out. Well, I think that we've just decided that we would like to move our budget hearing to the 27th.
I agree.
Does anybody see any issues with that?
it still gives us time, right?
Yeah, oh, yeah, we have plenty of
Would
time.
probably be,
Would help.
that's a good move.
It sounds like it
let's
helps
do it.
Jay and.
It-
I think it's a great move. Good
Yeah.
job, Amy. Thank you, everybody. Yeah. I mean, we have a whole blank day on March
Plus, we have to do
12th.
the mid-year goals review. That's a chunk of time.
Yeah, and the high school update is always
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'll be.
exciting. and
That's a full meeting.
it's a full meeting. Yeah,
That's a lot.
and you're right, we have the advisory council, which I would not want to cut short. Okay, well, great. Well, that was quick. Then, anything else? Any other,
Yeah, it's gonna be a long night.
yeah. That's what, make
We'll
sure
have
you
dinner.
We'll have dinner.
Good, yeah.
Quick question, do we know where we're at with CPAC? When are they?
Yeah, they are not
I
really
don't
on
see
our
them on the
schedule
list
this
yet,
year.
so I'm not sure where we stand. I just don't want them to get forgotten, that's all.
We'll follow up
Maybe they can.
with the new
well,
officers. Maybe they can
Yeah,
call on March
got
12th
plenty
and
of
talk a
time.
lot.
Oh, there's nothing on March 12th. I wonder why you picked that.
Yes, I think that would be.
Oh, there'll be something there, don't worry.
Oh, yeah.
We like to keep a little moving. Yeah, thank you, Amy, for that.
Yep.
Any other thoughts, questions, concerns? Okay, thanks. And we do have minutes. They're not in the packet. I lost my computer because
I think they're.
I mean, I read them, but I didn't know if they were in
Oh, yeah.
if they were in my print.
They are.
Sorry.
Yeah, they are.
I sent you the minutes. I know they're here. Okay. Oh. Any thoughts?
They are really comprehensive minutes.
Yeah, she's doing so
That's
great.
an unbelievable job.
So I wasn't there that meeting, I was traveling, I appreciated the detail.
Yeah.
She does it, and she reaches out with questions too, and
Awesome.
yeah, it's been great. So
Well, I move that we accept the minutes from December 12th, 2023.
Second.
motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? All those opposed? All those abstaining? Oh, you're opposed, Amy?
Or
No,
abstaining.
I still have my hand up, sorry. Let me guess.
Okay, so it was 4-0-1.
Correct.
All right.
I think you're gonna be able to see our faces now.
Yay.
Welcome, Ben.
Hello, Ben. Okay. And then we have a warrant.
So we have 3 warrants in the drive. I'm scrolling through the book to get the numbers and the amounts in front of my face because the warrants in the drive are sideways. Okay, I can do it.
And they're in the book,
I got
too.
it.
Yeah, they're in the book.
Madam Chair,
Thank you.
I move the committee approve warrant number 25 dated 12/21/2023 in the amount of $242,585.25.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Okay, motion carries 5-0.
Madam Chair, I move the committee approve warrant number 26 dated 12/28/2023 in the amount of $218,233.98.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 5-0.
Madam Chair, I move the committee approve warrant number 27 dated 1/1/2024 in the amount of $97,594.32.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor? All right, motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Okay, and then, policy, I meant to check to see if our policy book was updated, and I thought of it several times and never was there to do it, so, I'll let you, we'll look in the next couple weeks. Did you see it?
I think it's probably out of date. I did check, but it was before the holiday, and I
Oh,
think
okay.
there were still some
Yep.
updates. So
Okay.
I have, yeah.
All right, any member reports? Amy?
CIPC met just before the holidays. We reorganized. I'm now the chair.
Yay.
Yay. We had a first look at Evan's list of what the department submitted for capital requests and what he recommends funding. That included the information that Jay gave us prior to that meeting. So we took a look at those lists and we got a chance to ask questions of Evan. The next step will be to bring in department heads, so we will most certainly be having Jay and Frank come in at some point and meet with us and go over the specifics of those requests before we sign off. Nothing really earth-shattering to report, but there it is. It's going, the process is working.
It's great.
That's great.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Any other ones?
It's not, maybe
Fine.
this is the wrong time to say it, but this weekend is Grafton Day at the Worcester, at the Railers.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's right.
Yes,
That's
Yes.
so fun.
Saturday.
That's exciting.
Yes.
That is that's perfect.
Okay.
Correspondence.
Wrong when I was about to say.
So I wanted to bring this up here rather than future agenda schedule planning, but they might link together. So we received, or I received, Jay received, and he forwarded it to the rest of the committee. There's been some initiative from the Hopedale School Committee, Select Board, Finance Committee regarding the process for approving BVT's funding and how they present. I think my understanding is they're looking for some town support to help kind of with the process, with the funding on that. It's my understanding that BVT doesn't actually go and present to all of the districts once they get there's 13 districts, so once they get the majority, they don't even go, and so like towns like Hopedale don't have a voice, which I would say if this was us, I would be up in arms. I think, I'd love to talk about this more, it's not on our agenda, so with your permission, I'd like to just add it to our next.
Yeah.
Give us time to look at the memo and look at some information, and I don't think they're requiring like I don't know what it is I'm trying to say, but maybe a letter of support or something that we can show to try to help as the co-op towns to share this funding process should be made equal, in my opinion. But that was a way off.
Yeah,
Yeah.
happy
Yeah.
to talk about it more.
Yeah, so we'll add it to, we got it late, so I didn't add it to this agenda, and I wanted people to have time to look at it. And I don't know a ton about it. It might be more of a finance committee, but I think maybe if the 3 boards in this town came together, it would be good. And that was the only correspondence, really. Aim?
Can I back up real quick
Yeah,
to an agenda item that I missed?
sure.
Because it's not correspondence. It probably should have been under future agenda, I'm guessing. As you probably know, the legislature is going to take up whether or not to certify the MTA question for the November ballot on eliminating the MCAS graduation requirement. And I didn't know if you wanted to bring that back and discuss contacting our representative and our senator to ask for their support on the measure, or if that's something that we don't want to do, but maybe something for another day, because that is the next step. They have to certify it.
Yeah. I mean, I think we had a very lengthy talk about it, then decided at the time there was nothing we could do.
Too early,
I
yeah.
wonder if we, I mean,
Is there now something we can do, I guess is Amy's question.
right, which would be to write the letter. So my
Yeah.
question is, do we need to have a whole discussion again, or can we just discuss right now that we should, maybe somebody could volunteer to write the letter and we could review it?
I would be willing to write the letter.
Would you like?
Oh,
I
thank you
would
for
like that.
volunteering, Amy.
I can write a letter.
That sounds great, and then we can review
Clippy
it.
can help me.
Liz, you.
Yeah, no, I don't know if as long as we have a chance to review it, because I don't know if I probably didn't vet my thoughts completely
Oh, no.
because it was too soon, so.
Yeah,
as
100%,
long
we will
as-
review
yeah,
the
yeah.
letter. I just would rather not have a big discussion next week and then us
Yeah.
decide to have the letter, then bring it back, and then we'll,
Makes sense.
so maybe we can have the letter on, if you can do it in
Yeah.
2
In 2
weeks.
weeks, I should be able to do
Yeah.
that.
Okay,
Okay.
and we'll do it, have that. I
And
just-
then we'll, yeah.
Government is so inefficient sometimes, that it frustrates me. So that was more my
Cut
point.
to the chase, yeah.
Because I know us. Okay, great. What a great meeting this has been. We don't have to go into executive session. So I move to adjourn at 8:36.
Second.
All right. All those in favor? All right. Good night, Grafton. Drive safely.